Welcome back to the Savvy Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Amar Shah, and today we're going to be talking about the Stretch IRA. And before I start with the content of what I wanted to talk about, as I was preparing, I started pondering this thought, and I realized the Secure Act is really not secure. And what I mean by that is that when we look at individuals in retirement and how much they depend on Social Security and Medicare, the Secure Act does nothing to help fund those more. And those are the biggest gaps for people in retirement. And so I think it's problematic when they call this bill the Secure Act when it's not really securing the biggest burden or stress in retirement, like healthcare expenses and having that stable income. But that's just my opinion. Let's go into the top 5 things that I think will affect you in with the Secure Act. And the first thing is the death of the Stretch IRA. Now, what I mean by that, and I know it's the title of this video, is that the Stretch IRA is really a way where a beneficiary doesn't need the income, can leave it in the IRA and just take the minimum distribution based off their life expectancy. Now, there are 5 situations where you can still do that. If you're a surviving spouse, you can still stretch an IRA. If you're disabled, chronically ill, if you're less than 10 years of age of the original owner. So when we look at this, let's say you're 80 and you have a sister, let's just call her Sarah, who is 8 years younger than you. Sarah can still take a stretch distribution over her lifetime. Now, let's say if Sarah was 12 years younger than you, and so if you're 80, that would make her 68, then she can't do the stretch, and she would have to distribute the total IRA over 10 years. And the 5th one is minor children. You know, they can still have access to the stretch provisions. Now, when I think about this, the main thing I want to say is that for people or beneficiaries that were going to spend down their inheritance or the money that's in the IRA, it's not a big deal. But for people that have income that are doing well themselves and they don't want to spend down, well, this is kind of a problem, and we need to do some planning around that. The second thing that the Secure Act provides is annuities are coming back to your IRAs and 401ks. And I think here what they're trying to do is they're trying to take the benefits of a defined benefit plan and give you an option in your defined contribution plan to have that stream of income for life, or benefit like that. Now, annuities have had a bad rap in the past, especially ones that are associated with commission-based products and so forth. And there are annuities out there that have riders, so you can have certain income levels and stuff like that, but they're way too complex to understand for the average person. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to see some innovation in the annuity space to get plain vanilla type products with bigger pools and kind of give you that maximum income for the rest of your life type scenario. The third thing is RMDs are moving to 72. Well, what that means is that if you turn 70 and a half after January 1st, 2020, you don't have to take a required minimum distribution. You can delay till age 72. And this provides some planning opportunities. So if you're under 72, thinking about Roth conversions, after age 72, we know the new IRS table has reduced the amount that you have to take out, kind of stretched out the RMD table to later in life. And so I think this will be good. And I think the key here is that for most people, they just take their RMD and they just live off their RMD. So if we reduce that amount and they're still living off that RMD, they're going to have more money later in life. And I think that's a good thing. The fourth thing is that if you're 70 and a half or older and you're working, you can still contribute to an IRA now. And what that means is that you can take a deduction for any IRA contribution that you make while you work, which is a big thing, because we know that roughly, I think it's about 30% of people have part-time or full-time employment, and they're using the standard deduction, so they don't really have any big deductions that they can use. So this provides them with an additional deduction. Increased savings means more money later in life when they need it. And I think this is This is going to help. It's not going to move the needle much, but it'll help. The fifth thing and the last thing is that if you have a charitable intent, so qualified charitable deduction. So at age 70 and a half, you can take money directly from your IRA and give it to a charity up to $100,000, and that would count towards your required minimum distributions. Now, the big change with the Secure Act is after age 70 and a half, if you're making contributions to an IRA or qualified plan, your qualified charitable deduction amount is going to be offset by the amount that you've put in after age 70 and a half. So if you made contributions to an IRA, let's just use a round number, $5,000 a year from age 70 and a half. So this year, for the next 2 or 3 years, let's just say 3 years. So that's $15,000. And then you make a qualified charitable deduction of 20, you're only going to see 5 of that go off the top line. And so there needs to be some more planning, especially if you're charitably inclined and you're using the qualified charitable deduction and you're still working. If you have any questions that I haven't covered, you know how to get a hold of me, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Wealth Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember, investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional. Client First Capital LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Client First Capital LLC and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advice may be rendered by Client First Capital LLC unless a client service agreement is in place.